You're watching Set Life Season 4.
Welcome to Set Life. I'm Dan Rubottom here on the campus of Oral Roberts University on their brand new XR stage, filming with some fine students that have volunteered their time. And I'm with a good friend here, Benji Osborne. Welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to chat with you.
Yeah. How's it feel to be kind of in a cool stage like this?
It's kind of weird. It's not really real.
Yeah, it's right.
Kind of looks
real. Yeah.
So that's good.
We're creating illusions here,
Right.
trying to match with the Set Life vibe in Houston. So so I'm really glad to have you here. It's I've enjoyed watching you just do so much good work, and I knew you as a student for a little bit, and so it's been fun. Tell me a little bit about how you got started and when did you first get the bug to do this?
Well, how much time we got?
How much time you got? Yeah.
I'll try to give the short and the long of it. Photography has kind of always been an ever-present part of my life. My dad just very early when I was a kid put a camera in my hand and going on field trips, taking pictures of birds or the moon, whatever it was. It just always kind of interested me, the thought of being able to freeze a moment in time and be able to kind of capture that. And it's regardless of how bad your memory gets or whatever you capture will always be there and, never change quality, so to speak. So it's always been kind of cool. I remember as a kid setting up like action scenes with my Legos. They have like a spear in somebody's chest held onto with some red Play-Doh and then go get my dad's flip phone and take pictures.
That's awesome.
So it's always just kind of been an interest of mine. Frankly, I thought video was pretty stupid, just being honest. I never connected like movies with like videos that I saw on YouTube or whatever. To me, it just always felt a lot of like the videography felt kind of lazy. If you paused the frame, it usually didn't look good and wasn't really telling a story. Yeah. And so it's kind of, those are my two big gripes. And it's funny because I feel like now I use those two as like benchmarks for my work. If you pause it, does it still look good and still tell the story?
Well, yeah, like in a photo, it's like capture a moment in time. It has to tell a story right then or it doesn't, right?
Yeah, exactly. So came to ORU and there wasn't any photography degree. So I was like, well, I'll try marketing, seems close enough. So I was not dressed like this back then. I came in, pants sagging and a wife beater and everybody was in suits and I was kind of like, I don't know, maybe this ain't for me.
Do I fit?
Yeah, do I fit in? So I went over to the film department next semester and just kind of fell in love with it. It really felt like a team coming together, and that's still probably my favorite thing about it is having all the people in their specialty working to make something together. Photography was very lonely in a lot of ways. Like you have to find the locations and shoot it and style the models and find the models and hit up the models and find the brands, and it's like everything, even editing, is all inclusive for the most part. And I did like a little bit of fashion photography for like Puma, Forever 21, kind of in high school or early college days. So
in high school, you're doing that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like 17. So it was something that always interested me, but I don't know, just felt like there was a piece missing. I think that was just because I love working with people and interacting with people, and there was just not as much of that in still photography. I came and saw a set, and I was just like, man, this is so cool. Everybody's laughing, getting along, having fun, making something together. And I just kind of fell in love with it, and rest is history.
How was it making that transition from working kind of more by yourself, solo to a team?
I'll say it was like a kind of a weight off my shoulders in a lot of ways, just because it's not like I really enjoyed doing everything else. I just kind of had to. And so when I was able to kind of step back and really just worry about, finding the frame, what's the best framing and lens and all the other stuff that really interested me. And of course, moving a video, there's a whole lot of other things you got to learn too. But just being able to collaborate with people and I think use the gifts that I have to serve towards a story and not have to feel like I'm hurting anything because some of my strengths are not in other areas, if that makes sense. Like I've no business being an art director. Like don't hire me to be one, I'll probably do a terrible job. But it's like, that's somebody's specialty, right? And so it's for me, it's able to use the thing that I'm best at to plug it in and then have everybody else do that so the whole project just elevates.
So back briefly to your high school, when you were doing the Puma and the Forever 21, do you have an art director working with you, or was that just you? Like, you say that, but I mean, I see a strong like art aesthetic kind of in your work too.
Yeah.
So do you think just working with fashion brands kind of helped you in that way, or pulled that out of you more, or?
Yeah, art director probably wasn't the best example, but yeah, sound. Don't hire me to be a sound guy, right?
Okay.
We'll stick with that one.
Okay.
No, I think directing the photography is it's like all inclusive to me. So working with costuming and production design and noticing little details like, man, when I add wallpaper on this wall, it really pops. It's much better than just a plain wall, which is still like under the umbrella of being a DP. Even though it's not my specific department, I can collaborate and hear their ideas and kind of say, well, what if we did this type of curtain? And they're like, oh, wait, what if we did this? And it's, it's just growing and kind of making things better. So yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, the stuff I look at is some of my favorite work. It's probably not just because of the camera and the lens they use. It's because the production design and lighting and everything else that comes into it.
Yeah.
So no, I think it is all kind of under that same category and umbrella, so to speak.
Speaking of, who are some of your inspirations, or maybe in the early years, who were you looking at?
Gosh.
Across anything.
Yeah. I love street photography. That was one of my favorites. Can't remember the guy's
Shooting
name.
from the hip kind of thing?
Henry, I don't know how you say his last name, but he did a lot of like war photography.
Okay.
It's like Henry Brosson or something.
Okay, yeah.
Put it in a disclaimer down below.
I appreciate it, but I do not know all the names. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, street photography was definitely a big inspiration. I'll say the first like movie that really caught my eye, I watched Matrix when I was like 9 years old.
Wow.
And so Bill Pope shot that, and there's this one scene where Neo is standing under the bridge, and the car pulls up, and there's just this wall of water coming down from the rain, and it's just this green backlight that just strikes through it. And literally that image was imprinted into my mind.
Wow.
And so it's like, it's weird watching it back now and seeing it because I remember it so vividly that first time I watched it. But that was like the first time that any type of cinematography and lighting and all that really caught my eye.
And that was that probably before you even thought you would be a filmmaker? Because you were still looking at photography was familiar.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it was kind of I never connected like film in Hollywood with what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, you got to live in Hollywood if you want to work in Hollywood, right? So I just didn't see it as like an accessible thing, being born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's like, just feels like a different world. But yeah, that imagery always did stick with me, I think, kind of regardless of what medium I was doing,
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so you went through film school here. What were some of your, any key moments that you can think of that were pivotal in your learning filmmaking, or maybe when you made the decision to go more into cinematography specifically?
Well, I'll tell you the story of how I figured out I wanted to be a cinematographer. So junior year program here called MMI, and it's kind of a first real world experience where you get to touch and feel and do all the positions on a set. And so I written and directed this short, and it was a comedy, and we're sitting there in the street. The Ronan's not working, of course, things are going wrong. But I just kind of sat there and I was like, man, I really don't care about like the actors and like the script, even though I wrote it, handpicked these actors. I was like, I don't care about, I just want to move the camera and like light it and make it look cool and tell this story through a camera. Like, I don't really want to worry about the words, you know, I feel like that's not my specialty or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had this little like light bulb pop up and I was like, ding, like, oh, that's what being a DP is. You know? And so from then on, I just kind of really invested and I was like, you know what, I think that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like, funny thing about it, the film I did won Best Director and Audience Choice and all that at the film gala, but I was hurt because I didn't win Best Cinematographer, and so that's kind of what I knew. I was like, okay, maybe I should really stick to that because I won like the highest award, Audience Choice.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, oh yeah, cool, but
But I really wanted.
my friend got cinematography, so anyway, yeah. So from then I just jumped in and kind of both feet into it.
So then, graduating from college, what was your next step?
So sitting there a few months before I graduated, and I'm thinking, I did a little freelance as like an AC during mainly the summer between my junior and senior year, and then throughout my senior year. A little bit of camera operating and just working in the camera department. So I kind of already had set some roots freelance.
Okay.
But I was thinking like, got money, I need to make money. Like, I'm not making a whole lot of money doing this freelance thing. Maybe I'll work for a church or work for a production company, get a job, through an agency, whatever. And so I just asked the Lord, like, what do you want me to do? Like, trying to make money, but also I don't want to work on stuff I don't like. And just felt very clearly him put me in the direction of being freelance. And yeah, just camera assisted for about a year, with additional after to the probably year and a half that I'd done it while I was in school. I missed a lot of class my senior year. It was worth it because, got the camera off on an Emmy award-winning, John 3:16 commercial, cool stuff like that.
Wow.
It was like, you don't
That was
always,
when you were ACing?
yeah, that was senior year
Yeah.
of school here. So doing stuff like that, it kind of gives you a touch of what the real world is like, it gives you a taste. So yeah, just was like, you know what, whatever, I'm gonna just go for it. So I jumped in, was doing a lot of AC work, had a TV show booked as a second assistant camera straight out of college. So I worked for like 6 weeks on that and was tired as a dog working in summer heat here in Oklahoma. If you know, you know. I was like all outside, of course, and then the indoor locations didn't have AC. So
Right.
perfect. But yeah, I just continued to go down that path and continue to learn and did my best to keep a humble heart. And I really didn't start getting any DP work until I really started applying myself as an AC, if that makes sense. I would do a good job, but it was more of a passive, like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this until I can get my turn because I'm better than everybody else here, right? Of course, 20 or whatever, cocky as I'll get out. And so I really learned to just submit and to serve the DP in the first AC I was working for. And even got a few opportunities to pull focus on some commercials in Chicago and all over. Terrible focus puller, by the way. Literally, the DP nicknamed me Blur. No joke. Tracy Trost. Washington.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, man. Did my best. It was like, Fisher, dolly moves, and I'm just sitting there like, anyway. Yeah, pretty worthless as an AC, I'm not going to lie. But
Valuable lessons, though.
yeah, 100%. So it really paved, I feel like once I was able to really work towards that and learn to just be a good servant to the people that I was serving on set, and not just do it as a way to make money and hopefully get my big chance as a DP or whatever I was expecting. Then it was like the transition into being more of a DP and camera operator happened. And it was honestly pretty quick. Probably, I haven't AC'd in 2.5 years, I'd say.
Wow.
And I've just been able to pay my bills and do what I love to do at 24 is insane. I just feel like, I don't know if luck's a thing, but God's favor, whatever you want to call it, it's definitely real. So.
No, that's you're in a very blessed place to be in your point in your life. But it's really key that what you learned there, what you talked about, submitting and serving, right, to the DP. And I think that is really, I've never heard anybody in our interviews so far put it in that way. And I think um, I mean, it's also a biblical principle
Yeah.
that you applied in real life, and it changed the whole trajectory probably.
Right.
And it was a mindset change probably for you, right?
Yeah. I think personally for me, it was like God had to kind of say like, okay, can you do what you don't want to do well before I can start to, push you into actually what you're called to do, so to speak. Which, the best way I've heard it explained is everybody's just trying to make the person above them look good, right? So if you're a camera trainee or PA, you're just trying to make the second's life easier. The second's just trying to make the first life easier. First trying to make the op or DP's life easier. Op's trying to make the DP. DP's trying to make the director's trying to do the producer. It's like, it's all just a big ladder where you're handing up in a sense. And I think that's where I've watched it really, really flow like a well-oiled machine, is because people have that mindset where it's not about me and about what I want and what best for me, but it's about serving somebody. And I kind of had this idea that once you're a DP, it's like all about you and you run the show and everything. But that really is even more of a servant's role, in my opinion. Sure, you're telling people what to do in a sense, but at the same time, you're having to submit what you want to the story, right? It's like, for example, last summer I shot a feature film that was a rom-com. And so my style, I typically like shadows and backlight and real moody and, making it real dramatic. And it's like, that would not work for the story. Like, it would feel completely adjacent to the script, where it's a comedy and a little bit of drama, and the directors talked about wanting to have lots of contrast in the image and stuff like that. But it was like, I couldn't really do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was like I had to shift my mindset of like, well, even if I did light a shot like this, it looked really good, but it's like, why is it silhouette when he's cracking jokes? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
you got to see the eyes still. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Because I was wondering about the transition going into DP role, and that's really good. Where did the meeting go, or when did the meeting happen when you saw I would presume probably one of your heroes at the book signing?
Oh yeah, that old
You know
guy.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because I was following your Instagram, and I'm like, what? You got to
Hanging out
see
with
who?
Deakins?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of my friends hit me up because he's tied in with the Circle Cinema folks, and he's like, hey, tickets aren't on sale yet, but I got you a seat. Roger Deakins is coming to town. And I literally thought he was just messing with me. I'm like, all right, dude, it's not funny.
What?
Like, that's my idol, so to speak. So just the way it worked out with the person who was doing his collection in LA, he also had a thing here, like kind of a... I don't know what you call it, venue, I guess.
Okay.
And so he ended up coming to Tulsa as one of his stops.
Like one of the, like a museum, not a museum, but
art
exhibit.
collection. Yeah, exhibit.
Yeah.
There you go. There we go. Between the two of us,
the book. Yeah, we'll figure it out. It was his book, right, of stills.
Yeah.
And you got to talk to him a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you share any advice he gave you or anything? Or
Yes, actually. It's like we should have scripted this. This is perfect. Some of the best advice I ever got, he gave me in that. But yeah, so I walk up, first of all, literally he's my favorite. I mean, I know he's probably everybody's favorite.
Yeah, mine too, yeah.
It's like at the beginning when I was the DP, I was like, oh yeah, I don't like him. I like, Chivo or Prieto or something, because I didn't want to be the everybody
guy,
else like, exactly. Everybody likes Deakins. But it was like the more and more I watched the work, I was like, kind of everything
There's
I like.
a reason,
right there. Yeah. And so obviously I was pretty nervous. So I box sometimes, work out. Used to do it more than I do now. But getting up in my heart rate gets to about 140 pretty steadily. I see on my Apple Watch or whatever.
Right.
140.
Right.
So I'm sitting there and I feel like my heart's beating out of my chest because I'm like 3 away from, meeting him. Look down, it's like 148. So I'm like, literally, you could probably see my chest pumping. I was very nervous, but walked up to him and shook his hand, introduced myself, and just kind of did my best to shut out the fact that he's the guy I look up to all the time and just
Yeah.
try to have a conversation with him. We actually ended up having a good little talk a few nights. I did ask him if I could take him to dinner, and they were like, well, we would love to, but we're booked, to a
Yeah.
T already. And
Yeah.
I was like, dang it.
Oh, well, you never know until you ask.
Right. I was like,
What
worst
are you
case,
gonna
worst
lose?
case,
Yeah.
he says no.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had a good talk and, kind of cracked some jokes and everything. And once I made him laugh, I was like, okay, he's
Okay,
human.
good.
Like, I
Yes.
can talk
Yes.
with him.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I was talking to him about is, as I okay, let me give a little backstory. So there's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Not sure if you've heard of it. It's essentially, it's some psychology thing where essentially it's you take confidence and skill and you kind of put those on a path with, or a chart graph
Right.
with time. And so what it is when you start out, you have all the confidence in the world, none of the skill, none of the knowledge. So like way up here. And then you kind of get to a point where you realize you actually know nothing. And then your confidence goes all the way down.
Right.
And you're still pretty new, so you don't know that much. And then the rest of your life is a slow incline up to where your confidence rises with your skill.
Wow.
So it's it's in every profession, probably every art form too. So I had just come to like here, where I was like, okay, I know nothing. Like, I figured out what backlighting was and I thought I had it made.
Right.
And then I realized, how do you make a shot look good when you can't or whatever?
Yeah,
So it's like, just kind of was at that low steep and I started feeling really just like, I don't know, I feel like I'm falling out of love with it. Like just having to do a lot of this corporate stuff to, be able to pay my bills and pay rent and everything. I just felt like I was falling out of love with it. And so I was like, Roger, you've been doing this like a long time, 3 times as long as I've been alive, right? He's 76, I think, when I met him. And I was like 22 or 23. And so I was like, how do you stay afloat? How do you keep, progressing and being interested? And like, it doesn't seem like your work is plateaued. It's not like you've given up or thrown in the towel because it still is getting better. It's still looking good, And he had a very simple explanation. He was like, well, you just kind of got to do what interests you. And you got to do what you like, and whatever draws your attention, you gravitate towards it. And he said, frankly, that's why I'm doing the still photography thing right now. It's because that's where my heart is. It's just, that's what interests me, so I'm going to do it. And I was like, duh, like that makes so much sense, but it was such a simple answer. But really, it's like that's what he kind of attributes some of his success to, is just following what interests him. And so that really impacted me because now it's like, I'm not looking at jobs as, sometimes you got to make ends meet. You're doing it full time. You got to take some jobs that are not the most inspiring thing in the world.
Right.
But at the same time, when it is a project that you're selecting to do, you kind of have to have your heart in it, and there has to be a piece of you in it, I think. So yeah, that was, just to meet him was cool, but also to get such a nugget, in my opinion, of wisdom and knowledge, from somebody like him was just great. And I tried to keep in contact with him a little when I went out to LA. I told him I was in town, and James sent me back and she's like, oh, we just left to Morocco or whatever, vacation for a month. And I was like, oh, great.
That's great that you have that connection.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Definitely.
So what are you working on right now? What's kind of, you said you're working on a documentary, I think.
Yes, I'm working on a feature-length documentary. Shooting that right now. This is my first doc ever, and it's full in. We're jumped into, knee deep, so to speak. It's about black firemen, specifically black firemen in Tulsa, and the history surrounding that. The original 6 black firefighters in Tulsa, kind of the oppression, racism, segregation they're up against. Had to fight all of that on top of fighting fire.
Wow.
And how they paved a path, for firefighters today. And it's not perfect by any means, but it's came a long way. And so it's kind of looking at the history, where we're at now. We're following 2 firefighters in town. Just seeing their lives and what it's like, and then kind of looking forward to the future of what it can be like and how we can make it better, So yeah, it's called Fighting More Than Fire. just figure.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been really neat, kind of crazy, but
That's got to be totally different, shifting gears totally from something that's scripted and kind of control. This is what we're shooting. Now you're more following people or following or kind of
Right.
how is that working? What's kind of the biggest change for you in how you shoot things?
well, it's pretty much 180 degrees different. I mean, that was a, 7-figure budget for the feature narrative, and this is, high
Not
5
seven
figures.
figures.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, it's completely different. We had big G&E team and 2 grip trucks, and we had, Alexa Mini LF and signature proms and whatever else, well, not whatever else you want, but
Yeah,
decent
but it was
kit,
nice. Yeah.
kind of to get around it. And this is like, some days it's literally me, my camera, my lenses, and an AC. You know what I mean? We'll get lucky if we get 1 or 2 in G&E. It's usually like you want bounce or neg because we only
Right.
got one
Yeah,
guy,
one or the other.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting just as a exercise to me of finding the light and not trying to create it. You know what I mean? Because it's like most of the stuff we're shooting is on natural light. It's like I got 30 seconds to close these blinds and open these, but it's like other than that, especially when a fire hits, we get a call for a fire. I mean, it's 20 seconds, you better be on the truck because they're rolling out.
Wow.
Um,
So are you suiting up like with them?
Not too much. I usually, put on a respirator or whatever else, but they try to, keep me a little bit back, which haven't been very successful. Burnt my nose on one of the days because I took my mask off for a second during the fire and, burnt it. But anyway, it's been really interesting, really fun to do that. But it's been definitely like I don't know, it's like you take away everything except the camera.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can you still make a good image? You know what I mean? So it's been really a good exercise for me to just trust my instincts. You don't have time to really shot list or go through or think about the coverage. I mean, it's literally just going.
Yeah.
And,
It's probably more about finding where I can position myself so that the light's hitting him right, or
yeah,
just finding those angles and
exactly.
a lot more spontaneity.
Right. Yeah, and it's very much, I mean, it's just, it feels like it's just a gut instinct. That's the only way I can describe it. And you get some of that on a bigger set when you still got to make choices about lighting. But this is like, all right, we go.
Yeah, here we go.
You know what I mean? So it's been really good though. I think it's forcing me to be better and forcing me to be more observant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. That's one of the things I talk to you about with younger people and students is like learn to be observant in life. Like just like if you want to be a better cinematographer, just observe how light works. Like how does it when it comes through a window that and there's a building next to the window, what does the light do? Is it how it bounces and how it hits different colors and I was saying the same thing about sound too. Like learn how sound works. Like because we were talking about audio mixing and so I think it's really just learning how to be observant in real life. Just like if you just sit at the park and just people watch too, and just watch people. If you can learn how people walk, how they walk and talk, and how the light hits them when they walk through a certain area, and that probably you having the background as a photographer too is probably kicking in too instinctively.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's quick frame and find something. Especially
you don't have a gaffer for. Usually, unless it's fashion stuff, maybe. But
oh no, I mean all the photography I did, I was one man band.
Yeah.
It was literally just finding, kind of see some dapper light from a tree and be like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
let's shoot it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of that same instinct, and it's funny to see some of the stuff I was doing in my photography when I had no idea about lighting. I was literally just shooting whatever I thought looked cool.
Yeah,
it's like similar to what I'm doing now when I kind of halfway somewhat know what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's funny because I'm looking at old photos like, oh yeah, that's literally what I like now. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I like the grain and I like having a little bit of this. And so anyway, it's just an interesting, it's like a reminder that I'm not just like faking what I like, I guess. It's gotta come from someplace.
Yeah, you have like likes and the things that look good to you and
almost like I'm a real person.
Yeah, like a real person. You're like So, like, let me like, so if you're approaching a scene, like if you're shooting a narrative, and how do you approach like how you're going to light something? Like, what is your thought process of going into a room or a location?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were talking about earlier about observing, that's probably the overarching theme. Even I love just looking at a location, we're going on a scout and just taking a few minutes to just walk around and feel the space out and look at where the sun lands. And maybe during 5, it'll be doing something that's not doing at 3. You know what I mean? Or hitting this way, or getting some shaft of light coming through this window, whatever it is. I find my work, I really try to make things look as naturalistic as possible. To a certain extent, kind of got to make it a little pretty, but
You gotta,
it's like basic
hype it up a
realism.
little bit
Yeah.
sometimes,
Right, but it's
poetic realism.
right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So yeah, I think the first thing I do is just look into space and see what's going on naturally. See what the practicals look like. Practicals in my film, the regular light switches in real world lamps.
Yeah, right. We love practical.
Right. It's like, see what those are doing. What are the fluorescents doing? Can you turn this side off and this side on? Is there a time of day where the sun isn't blowing out the window? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like seeing just kind of what's happening naturally. And then I think the next thing I always try to figure out before I put a light is just where are the actors going to be living? Because that's going to dictate probably everything else I do.
Yeah.
I would love to be at the point where I can just light a space beautifully and the director can point a camera wherever he wants and it looks great.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
That's a challenge.
So it's like for me, it's very, I want to see the blocking and then see kind of what the director sees. It's like, are we doing a oneer? Are we playing it on a wide? Is it just a wide lock off? Are we doing only overs? Are we doing singles? Are we doing, where does it start? Where does it end? Kind of, because there's always some form of action through pretty much any scene, even if it's taking a step or standing up or sitting down. So figuring that out, and then from there, it's just kind of, usually by that time, I kind of have an idea of what I want it to look like. And from there, it's really just communicating that vision I have to the people that need to know it, coming up with a plan to best execute it.
Very cool. How has, again, transitioning from photography to film cinematography, how did you introduce motion and how did you learn to capture images with motion? Was that hard, or did it come fairly naturally?
Well, I'll be honest, I feel like I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Kind of hope I always am still learning.
Me too. Absolutely.
Being honest. I think there are certain things that I gravitate towards, certain emotions that certain camera movements evoke, certain feelings that certain lenses even evoke. So for me, kind of I just had to figure out what the parameters of what I usually like are, and then I can kind of know within that framework how to work that into a story. If I'm on a large format sensor, I love somewhere in the 40 to 50 range for, my clean singles. To me, that just feels like right. 35 might be a little too wide, but 50 something or 60, 70, 85 might feel a little too tight, but somewhere in that range, for me, it just feels right. Once you kind of understand the framework of what you like, I think it's easier to kind of plug and play. But to answer your question, I think it's, I don't know, it's kind of something where you just got to go with it instinctually. For me, I always prefer Steadicam to a gimbal. I don't know why, it just feels right to me. And I can come up with all this technical jargon that I'd say to production when they ask, why do I want to pay $2,000 more a day for a Steadicam?
Right.
But I'm like, this feels right. You know what I mean? Plain and simple, I can come up with all the excuses, not excuses, but reasons of what I like something. But end of the day, it's just taste. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Deakins' work looks a certain way because he has certain tastes. Same with Greg Fraser or Lubeski or whatever, all these, greats to me, they all have certain tastes and that defines and informs their work. And so there's certain times where I'm, on this firefighting doc, it's like pretty much all handheld. You know what I mean? We have interviews are on sticks, but everything else is very just feel. You just kind of have to. I want to feel that energy, and you know, now that I know I like to operate a certain way, like I always grab that matte box. Gotta have handles up there because I like to be very. It feels like an extension of me at that point.
I always wondered. Sometimes I would read, American Cinematographer magazine all the time, and I see the guys holding a matte box. I'm like, maybe I should try that. I don't really get that. I always was thinking like, I know I kind of grew up like shooting ENG style with Betacam, so I kind of was more on the lens, but then the matte box.
Yeah, I think I picked that up from Shane Hurlburt.
Yeah,
he was talking about doing that, and then he said like he gets spider grips and he'll just put the handles right next to him. And so I got that, and I was like, this feels right. You know what I mean?
Just gotta make sure that Mac box is on there really good.
Yeah, get you. Yeah, good. Don't get a plastic one, right?
Yeah. That's cool.
I don't think I answered your question.
No, you did. It's because I think it just we're always learning, right? Like you're learning. Like to me, like one of the like Spielberg, the way he moves the camera and blocks actors and going through scenes. I think of like the shot, like I think it was E.T. or something, where they're like the ambulance is coming in, there's this tracking shot across the street, and I'm like, how do you plan all that stuff? Like, I mean, it takes a lot of years, obviously, of practice and doing it, but I always admired certain directors or DP's ability to plan out a shot or just move it well. I'm more of a handheld guy. That's like kind of my comfortable place. But then like you said, you have to kind of adapt to different. You can't shoot everything handheld.
Yeah, everything's
you gotta learn all the wrenches in the toolbox, so to speak. You know,
I think it's I guess to sum it up, it's a collaboration, obviously, between you and the director on whatever it is, and it's about blending whatever you both see into something. I've worked with directors that are like, I don't really care as much, just frame up something. I've worked with directors that are like, no, we need to have it on a 35, on a steady cam, moving it, you know what I mean? It's very specific. Some are more technical than others, but I think it's about, if you see something, that's the key. Yeah. And then the fun part is figuring out how to do it best. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the joy of it in me is like, okay, he wants to do this crazy shot, like how do we make it happen? You know what I mean?
That's just figuring out those challenges and rising to it. Can be a little bit intimidating sometimes, but that's part of the fun and figuring it out. Last kind of question I want to ask is like advice to up and coming filmmakers. I think a lot of times people they don't know like how to even get into it. Should I start a YouTube channel, or should I start with my own camera? Do I need to buy cameras? Like do I need to have an FX3, or do I and a
1/8 Pro Mist?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that if you listen to Team Deakins podcast, like the first question they always ask everybody is, how did you get into this business? No one person has the same story. You know what I mean? Everybody, there's just a million roads to get to the same destination. And so I'd kind of say, like, don't try to force something for a career. You almost just kind of have to let it unfold. I think that there's a lot of ways that you can try to make things happen. But ultimately, I think it's just got to be, whatever God has planned for you. You know what I mean? Just plain and simple to me. For me, one of the most beneficial things, like we were talking about earlier, is when I was an AC and I could train under a DP who was nice to the crew and didn't yell at people and was a good communicator and had a good eye, and those things that I now strive for when I'm, leading a set or, whatever it is. It's you kind of got to have somebody to look up to, I think, in a lot of ways. So getting on set is probably one of the most beneficial things I would say. To do that, though, realistically, plain and simple, you just got to be willing to be humble, do whatever they want you to do to a certain extent.
Right.
Okay. Some of these people are weirdos out here, so don't get caught up in that trap.
Right.
Do whatever, seems feasible for the production.
Yes.
I've heard stories of famous directors who their first day on set, they were a PA and somebody told them to scrape dog poop off people's shoes.
What?
Yeah, so they're literally their first day on set. They're just scraping.
They want to just humiliate them and as
Right.
much as they can.
Yeah, and it's we got to clean them off
yeah.
and give it to the new guy.
Yeah.
And I mean that's like
Okay.
as horrible as that is in a
Yeah.
certain extent, like
Yeah.
just as I don't want to clean head off people's shoes.
Right.
Like now he's a famous director, and so to me it's like you kind of got to be willing to do whatever it takes to a certain extent to, afford you those opportunities. The first AD on the feature film that I shot, he humbled himself and went in as like a set PA or something like, or office PA or whatever, and worked on Killers of the Flower Moon. And he said he did it all just so he could watch one rehearsal. And he called that the price of admission. And so he went in and went back to being a PA, even though he's directed feature films and, first AD on big films as well. He did that just so he could watch Scorsese, do his thing.
Yeah.
And so that's to me
That's
is
valuable.
like, if Deakins calls me up and wants him to go make him tea or whatever he likes on set, I'm gonna do it, plain and simple, just because it's like that's a worthwhile cost of admission for what you get on the backside. So yeah, be willing to be humble and do whatever it takes to afford you the opportunities that'll present themselves down the road. The other thing I want to say is, if you really love this and you really want to do it, you got to look at it as a career, not a job. It's easy to kind of get pigeonholed into one certain, department or one certain niche of filmmaking or whatever, but it's like we have to step back and really look like, I've been a PA for 2 years. And it's like, yeah, welcome to what everybody else has done and, who's somebody now. And try to always look towards making long-term money, not short-term money. That's a good piece of advice I got was, invest in yourself. Go out, work as a PA or work a serving job, whatever, and take that money, put a couple thousand in with a director, DP, or a couple actors, whatever, and go make a spec piece. Go make a short film. Go make a fake Nike commercial. You know what I mean? Because those are the type of things that's going to afford you the opportunities that you are looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's really
So, yeah, don't be willing to kind of do whatever it takes. And I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but it's like, I know a buddy of mine, and he literally got signed to Artistry Agency, which is one of the biggest agencies in the world as a DP. And all of his reel up to that point was spec work. So he would work. He worked at a production company, and then he'd save up, $5,000 to $10,000, and then he'd just go shoot something, rent, an Alexa and some anamorphic lenses or whatever, and then he'd go shoot a spec commercial. And so it's like all these little jobs that he has that he's posting are what are getting him work in the future, right?
Wow, that's smart.
And so it's like, that's, some people call that faking it or dishonest or whatever. And I think if somebody says like, oh, ASICS hired you to shoot that shoe commercial, don't say yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, be real with them.
Right.
But at the same time, like, hey, man, I mean, if somebody sees it and they want to hire you because of that, you still shot it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
Like,
think it's a good way of showing a proof of concept. I can do this kind of level of work.
Yeah, and whether that's documentary, commercial, or music video, or whatever, like, there's in some form or avenue, you can find a way to do that, kind of as a spec project. So yeah, that's honestly what got me my start. It wasn't that I was, the best AC in the world and they bumped me up. It was that I did that, and then I went and shot my own projects on the side.
Okay.
And then people saw that and they're like, oh, well, that little music video looks pretty good. Let me hire him to shoot mine.
Yeah.
And then it just builds and snowballs, and then next thing you know, you're a dumb 23-year-old who somebody trusted to shoot a $1.4 million feature.
Come on. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
that's-
like, proof's in the pudding. I can't argue with it because I lived it. So,
Yeah, that's right.
so,
Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming and sharing.
Thanks for having me.
I think there's a lot of really good, valuable stuff I hope you all are learning from and enjoying. How do people get in touch with you? I know you have a YouTube channel. Are you
I
still,
do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm not super active on it.
Okay.
But a few
Like
good
some
videos
good stuff
there.
on there, yeah.
Yeah, I did a video about shooting a feature film and what I learned from there, which was like 30 minutes or something ridiculous.
Nice.
But,
What's the handle for that?
if you just look up Benji Osborne, it should pop
Okay.
up. Also, if you go to BenjiOsborne.com, BenjiOsborne, got my YouTube and Instagram and Vimeo and probably a whole bunch of other stuff you don't care about on there.
No, very good stuff. Go follow Benji. And you can follow me on Instagram also, Dan Rubottom. Look me up.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Until next time on Set Life, stay creative.
Yo. Thanks for having me.
Good job, man. That's
Thanks.
good.